are live and on lockdown.
Are you ready?
Broadcasting from Edinburgh, Scotland and across the globe.
Listen here.
You're listening to Ramsay Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders podcast for host Fraser Ramsay.
Hi, this is Afia Letha from KingdomBeats.com. Proud to be a sponsor of Ramsay Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders on.
Hi, this is Zakia Ringgold from NaturalSoapByZakia.com. Proud sponsors of the Ramsay Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders podcast.
So welcome to another edition to Ramsay Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders with my guest. It's been a while. I've not done a podcast in a while. I've had a bit of a break over the summer because it's been really busy. So I'm back on in the hot seat with Ramsay Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders with my guest from Upstate New York. And let's just say his name on Facebook is not what his real name is, but we will go into that a little bit later. It does sound like a bit of a female lingerie line, but yes, you couldn't really make it up, to be honest with you, as he laughs in the background. So, but welcome to another edition of Ramsay Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders. We'll have our usual segments from Benita Charles for 60-second singing tips. We'll have a shout out to our supporters and sponsors. You'll be hearing at the beginning of the podcast. We have our supporters of Afia Letha from Kingdom Beats and Frame Your Day, Zakia Ringgold from Natural Soap by Zakia. So big shout out to them, and all the show notes, you'll see all the information. We have lots of other supporters which we'll mention during the course of the show and go from there. So I want to welcome my guest, Matthew Sasano, not Sassy Pants, but we'll go into that nickname later on. So Matthew Sasano, welcome to Ramsay Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders.
Hey man, what's going on? It's great to be here for our first international broadcast in Scotland. And like I said, dude, you've got some great ideas with the sassy pants. I'm trying to reach that female demographic. So I figure, if the music thing doesn't work out, maybe we can start a lingerie line. And, I'm always a guy that has a plan B. So I want to thank you for that, as well as having me on the podcast.
Well, you just never know. You might just take up with the big hit with the feminist movement, but won't go into that one without taking out politics. So without annoying anybody. Right, let's talk about who is Matthew Sasano. Tell us about where you're from. Did you grow up in upstate New York? And tell us a bit about your background.
Yeah, originally from upstate New York in a little town called Canisteo, New York. The closest place that I always say that I'm from that people recognize is Buffalo or Rochester. It's around that area. And the thing about me is I don't want to give too much of like who I am a little bit too early, but I am really bad at explaining directions. So because I have a disability called dyscalculia. So whenever somebody asks me where I'm from and explains directions, I always say Buffalo, New York. And because I know the follow-up question is, where is Canisteo? And I know I'm never going to be able to answer that. So for the sake of
upstate New York is good enough for me.
Yeah.
It's near New York. It's upstate New York. Hey, it's obviously a suburb of New York somewhere. Anyway, so it's not major.
Yeah. But I've been in here we moved from upstate New York to Tennessee. I've been living in Knoxville for about the past 5 years, doing the music thing, pursuing music, and doing that whole thing. So it's been great.
Well, tell us about life growing up. Obviously, you've moved to Tennessee, but your life growing up was upstate New York. So tell us about life, school, education. Obviously, there's disability. Explain the disability. But we'll start off with your growing up in education first.
Okay. Like I said, with the growing up and education part, I want to have I know this is breaking the rules of rock starness, but we're going to have my mom on the podcast. Just give a little bit of my background.
Is this Missy Sassy Pants?
Yes, this is Missy Sassy Pants.
I am Missy Sassy Pants.
So we've got Missy Sassy Pants giving us a bit of a background info to Matthew Sassy Pants or Matthew Sasano. Anyway, Go ahead, please.
Yes, no problem. Matty was preemie. He was born at 33 weeks, and they told me the night that he was born he was going to die.
Oh, dear.
And I said, well, that wasn't really good news. And but when I woke up, he was the biggest mouth preemie in the whole division. So they put him in a closet to keep him quiet. Literally, seriously. And at that time, we didn't know some of his disabilities, but because of that early birth, he got cerebral palsy. And so we worked with that for quite a bit. And as he went, he had challenges we didn't understand because they really weren't designed to cerebral palsy exactly. And so he had procession problems, a lot of getting lost, can't drive. We get lost in his own bedroom, you know.
Yeah, a lot of people wonder why I'm single. I'm like, it's because I can't drive, I can't get out. So, when a girl's like, can you pick me up at 7? I'll be like, how far is the walk? So that's kind of why, some of the struggles that it presents. But yeah, I grew up with a lot of just like disabilities, and I think a lot of my life has to do with kind of overcoming and transcending. And so that kind of came out in my music as well. Like at this
So great. Obviously, I mean, how did you learn adapt to your cerebral palsy with growing in school, obviously with having a disability and knowing that your directions are kind of your directions are all over the place like a magnet to a compass. But how did you kind of adapt or cope while at school and learning and going from there, really?
A lot of it, man. I've always kind of been like an introspective person, but a lot of it too was just having a sense of humor to kind of just like overcome it. Like, it's so funny because a lot of the kids that I grew up with disabilities and things like that, I was mainstreamed for a lot of the classes, I would say for the majority of my classes in school. But when it came to math and some of the other things, I was in the special ed class. So I would kind of get a perspective of kind of both walks of life. Like, I'd hang out with people that were mainstreamed and then people that were in special ed. And the main component that I noticed that most of the people in special ed, when they got picked on or when they were put on the spot over something, they didn't have the sense of humor or like that way to bounce back. And that's something that I kind of developed early. I would take something that people would obviously be like, oh, you walk with a limp or you do this, and I'd make a big joke out of it. And that kind of, I don't know, that sense of humor and being able to kind of just make myself a spectacle kind of was like a mechanism for survival in the early days of my high school. But I also have dyscalculia as well, which, like I said, is only 4% of the world has it. And it has to do with place and space and mathematics. And I get lost in my backyard, man. Like, it's so bad. So like, there was just a lot to overcome in high school, but between kind of, I would say my sense of humor and my ability, I was always like a prankster too. I'd be pranking other people so that the onus was off of me. So they'd be like, I'd be in detention all the time doing little stunts that would be like, nobody's focused on the disability, man. They're focused that you just like crowd surfed in the middle of the pep assembly and then like did a whole routine. I've always kind of been a little bit of a performer, and I think maybe that's somewhat of where the performer comes from in me, is just having to kind of be on the spot all the time, but also learning to kind of transcend it through my sense of humor and my theatricalness, I guess. But I was that kid in high school that had the blue spiked hair and listened to punk rock and, stuff like that. So I was a different breed, man, I guess you could say,
That's good. So what got you, when did your music interest start? When did it start to grow?
Oh, man. Well, like I said, I was actually raised in church. I did a lot of things for like the church music team as well. Like my dad was a preacher. My mom was a preacher's wife. So I was in a small town church. And this is kind of a side issue, but like with growing up with disabilities and things like that, I really found the thing that made me find my voice and kind of give me strength was like rock music. And I got really influenced by like all the things that rap, hip hop and all that. So that's where the love of music came in. I did do a few things for the church, but I also, my love of music really came when I discovered like rock and roll. And that was like a huge thing for me. I was about 15 years old, and there was these rebel kids that came to the church. They used to be the Amish kids, and they had their tattoos and they had their piercings and they were smoking out in the church parking lot. I'm just like, the rebel in me was like, man, who are these people, you know? So I would hang out with them outside the church parking lot, and they introduced me to rock and roll and rap and hip hop and Eminem. And that's really where, like, being the underdog for a lot of my life between the disabilities and another side issue was, this is a lot to digest, but like my dad secretly was like abusive to me, and he was the pastor of the church. So I kind of found my strength in my voice through that rebellious rock music, and these Amish kids were kind of the gateway into that rock bug that infected me with the rock bug. Okay. And so that was my journey early on, was just, you know.
So how did you, obviously, we know that many people that I've interviewed in the past, that they go through they've been through a form of abuse, and it's not an easy thing to deal with in your life. And it sounds like, how did you, dealing with that in your life and going forward with having a disability and but was that really quite a low part in your life? And how did you start to deal with that after going through that period of abuse? Yeah, man.
It was throughout life, man. I actually ended up, when I was 17, in the psych ward for a lot of depression issues and things like that, because a lot of what I was taught growing up in church is like, it's not that church has its great benefits, and I do subscribe to being a Christian, but a lot that was taught was just like, keep it quiet, you know, like, we don't want to disappoint other people out in the congregation. If they find out about our lives, maybe they'll view God in a certain way. So it was really a lot of like this well-intentioned but twisted thinking that came through like the church. And I think, what was the question? I'm sorry, man.
No. What I was going to say, we'll take it for those who are listening or watching, and we'll take a small break. For those who are listening on the podcast, we'll take a break, and we'll just give a shout out to. We'll come back to another part. We'll come back to Matt. We'll give a shout out to. We'll grab a segment from Benita Charles. We have Benita Charles 60-second singing tips, which I love putting out there. Love supporting upcoming artists, and especially Benita, who provides for the show. And she does a sort of segment every sort of Saturday/Sunday on Facebook with singing tips and motivation. And we get a wee 60-second slot for you to listen to. So, and if you like Benita's music, or if you want to go to her website, you can go to benitacharles.com and you can have a listen. We're going to thank everyone who is listening. So back in a second by listening to Benita Charles' 60-second singing tips, and we'll be back with Matt in a second.
Hi. This is Benita Charles from BenitaCharles.com on Ramsay Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders, with your 60-second singing tip. Today's tip is about being fully committed, 100%. The time is now to give 100% to your dreams. You've been playing small for too long. Where has it gotten you? If you're not happy where you are in your business, it's time to get serious and get focused. Decide what you want. Nothing beats a made-up mind. Make a plan. Take it one step at a time. Execute. Take action with a sense of urgency. Do it now. The world is waiting on what you have to offer. Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for the next 60-second singing tip on Ramsay Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders.
And welcome back to part 2 of Ramsay Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders. And my guest, Matthew Sasano, or AKA Mr. Sassy Pants, all the way from upstate New York, or not upstate New York anymore, but he's in Tennessee. But we will, as I say, we were talking about, we touched on a little bit of what he's gone through. He was in a psych ward. Went through abuse from his blood father in church and things. So that is obviously not an easy thing to talk about. And we've got the stage that he's now at a psych ward. He's going through depression. Let's touch on these things. How long did you struggle from depression? How long were you in the hospital for due to it? When did you sort of?
I would say that I struggled with depression for the vast majority of my teen years. But a lot of the stuff that I would contend with, man, was just like me having to be strong and not show like the sadness inside or whatever it was, because I had that reputation to live up to, you know, the small family church. Everybody knows everybody. So a lot of times, man, I was just taught to like keep it inside, you know, or, you know, we don't want to disillusion people as to what we believe based on what, you know, it was a lot of twisted, like I said, thinking that that led up to that consensus, but it did land me in the psych ward when I was about 17. And I was only there for about a week and a half.
Right.
And actually one of the songs that I wrote on the album that I did, Ghost, was actually loosely based on that premise of just like kind of feeling alone and lost in the world. And when I was in the psych ward, the only people that would visit me was actually my mom, man. Like, not a lot of people wanted to get their hands dirty with our situation. So
right.
A large part of who I am and a large part of my music has always been about honesty. You know what I mean? Like, I like to be honest and transparent. I was in a band before this called Transparent Soul. So a lot of like the narrative of what I do now revolves around transparency and honesty because of some of the lack thereof in my early years. I always wanted to be like, you know what? I'm never going to be a perfect person. I might have my struggles, but I want to be open about them because that's, it's hard to do when you're, I guess, in ministry or whatever. But I was always that guy that people could let their guard down around. And I think that's been a quality of mine. Like, I've worked also in the psych ward years later as a mental health aide. And I think a lot of my past kind of helped me navigate how to help other people, and I've always been that guy that like, you can tell me anything and you don't have to have a guard up around me. I was the kid, like I said, in church that had the blue hair, and I'd walk in Sunday morning service and people would be like, is that the pastor's son? Like, so I was cut from a little bit of a different cloth.
Tell me what style of church did you go to?
It was I don't know if you know Pentecostal. It's kind of more like a charismatic type of church and everything. Really small town type of church. Everybody knew everybody. A lot of evangelists would come in and do their thing. It was a lot of like the healing and faith. But like I said, that's not really where my music, I feel, is for people that are outside of the church, even more so than it is inside of the church. Like, I am a Christian and I subscribe to those beliefs, but we play for a wide range of people, man. We just opened for Bubba Sparks a couple weeks ago. We've been doing, so I don't really view myself as a Christian artist. I am a Christian doing music that I feel is honest. And that's kind of how it boils down, man.
Well, that's good. Well, it's good to get a bit of an insight to the background of your life, and obviously to go through what you've been through and where you are now is fantastic, and it's great news. And what you just want to thrive to help other people through your music and what you're doing, which is great. So, let's say, as we've sort of dissected a bit more about you and your disability, when did you start really develop? When did you get your first album? When did you start producing more songs? And obviously, you were in that band before. So talk about the music in the band and how long did that go on for? Where did the music go?
All right. So my first band project was a band called Transparent. And that was based out of that small town, obscure town that nobody knows about and I can't explain, called Canisteo, New York. You can Google it if you want to know where it is. But there was it was a small town. There wasn't really a whole bunch of music going on. But how would you explain how that got started? Like, we just started out of the blue. We started it was like a 4-piece band. And one of the songs, actually, weirdly enough, a song called Bridges that I had written, actually ended up on a NASCAR video game in 2012. So that was like my first kind of big break exposure for being such a small town band. I went on from there to moving. That band broke up. So I did another band called Transparent Soul, which was we redid the songs and kind of reshaped the genre a little bit. And that was more Tennessee based. And then after that band had broke up, see, there's a cycle here. You can't trust band members, man. You gotta, finally, I just got the sense where we were just like, you know what? Like, these projects are great. The music's great. Everything about them's great. But the band members seem to be a little bit going. So what we did was we just started a solo project, and then I changed my genre to a little bit more of I don't even know what you would call it. It's more of an EDM flavored brand of pop with like explosive rock energy. And how that happened was when my last band broke up, I was kind of on the verge of like just kind of quitting music. And so we ended up doing like a licensing class where they would write for a lot of TV and film and things like that. And I was in this class for a while. And how did that go? It's just like, I just started writing these songs and trying to figure out like a new brand of myself or whatever. And this is kind of the style that I came up with. It's a lot of the songs on the album are based on maybe TV premises, but as they relate to our stories and my story as well, like being a champion, being an overcomer. There's all sorts of different things that you might see on a TV, but how I try to relate it back to my story. And Well,
let's go into the first song we're going to discuss, obviously, before the transition of music. Sure. We'll talk about the Zombies, and tell us a bit about the background of writing it, and tell us a bit about it. Okay?
Yeah. Like I said, Zombie was kind of my first transition into what I would call this new genre of music that we're doing. Like I said, with the rock background, there's a lot of always that darker undertone to rock music, as we all know, like Black Sabbath and all that kind of, not to say that that's who I am, but there's always that darker undertone. So with transitioning into kind of a more pop EDM flavor type of project, Zombie became about like, with the TV and film thing, it became about like being bit in a bad relationship and then ending up dead inside. And then oftentimes what we do in those bad relationships, I've been in plenty, I'm still single at 33, is that we pass the whatever hurt, whatever bitterness we have on in the next relationship we're in. So really my intent with that first song was to write something that's a common theme in TV. We see those zombie movies. We see The Walking Dead. We see, there's a million different zombie movies. But I wanted to take something like that and just apply it to an everyday situation. So while I was working, I just got this tune in my head. And it later became the hook for What Is That Zombie song that I did. And it's all about relationship issues. And
I'll let you introduce that song, and then we'll play it. So people can, we'll play it, and then we'll come back after. So I want you to introduce that song, okay?
All right, everybody out in Scotland, I want you to prepare to be scared because Zombie's coming at you. This is Zombie by me.
Smile and devil's eyes, she lured me in past the warning signs, and I heard through the grapevine. But everywhere I go, she's right there, and she keeps on coming back like a night terror. It's a vicious game of love, and she don't fight fair. She's got me feeling blissful in my nightmare, and I'm so afraid. But I can't walk away when something inside of me tells me you're a zombie.
And welcome back to, we just listened to Zombies by Matt Sasano, all the way from upstate New York originally, and now living in Tennessee. So I hope you enjoyed that. So let's carry on. So that was the Zombies really was his first style of music, and obviously he's transitioning into his new style of music and the music he's doing now with Matt Sasano Music. But we'll talk a bit more of where people can find Matt with his website, etc., and blah, blah, blah. But we'll talk about he's just briefly touched on his transition in music. So the style of music you're doing now going forward, tell us a bit more about it.
Yeah, man. That kind of started when I started recording with this producer from Knoxville. He's a young guy. He's 23 years old. His name's Colton Carnley. And he specialized more in kind of that pop EDM type of style where it's more electronic. So when I was going into this project, it was just kind of a weird natural progression where my rock influence met his electronic influence. And we just tore down all the preconceived notions of what I was like, all right, well, let's try a little hip hop. Let's try a little this. Because I was influenced by a lot of different things growing up, primarily rock. But in this project, we just kind of, we went all things M3, Matt Sasano. And we were just like, all right, let's throw a little of this influence in there. So it was primarily my rock influence and hip hop influence meets a lot of his heavy electronics. So what you'll hear is, my rock energy and my rock themes of like overcoming and being a champion and some darker themes meeting with his more EDM style. And we've really been enjoying it, man. It's really a different blend of music because it's so cool. The first festival we were on was a heavy metal festival called Audio Feed Festival not that long ago. It was a couple months ago. And we had a bunch of metalheads in there and things like that. And we performed and put on a great show. And then a couple weeks back, we opened for Bubba Sparks, who was a rapper that, everybody knows that song here in America. It was called Miss New Booty. So we touch on a lot of different ground, man. And I feel like this new wave of music that we're doing can reach a variety of people just because of what it is. It's so unique.
You originally started your new music with just yourself, and then you've kind of got a band member now, but technically you're still solo artist, like Bon Jovi with lots of people in the background, kind of thing. But
it's cool, man. Like I said, this kind of started off as like rebranding everything so that the band world, any musician will tell you, not a lot of band members stick with you. So this whole thing initially started where it was just going to be Matt Sasano. I rebranded everything in my own name but then how does Tyler moved in with us. He was coming from Mississippi and was going through a little bit of a rocky time in his life. And we just so happened, I'm a night owl. We saw on Facebook that he was going through a little something. We reached out, and my stepdad / manager, Steve, who helps manage the music, was like, you know what? You guys have been friends for so long. We've been friends since he was 7 and I was 11. I was like the big brother figure. So Steve, knowing this, saw his Facebook status about him going through a little something. He's like, you know what? You guys have been friends for so long. Why don't we move Tyler down here, teach him the bass, and you guys can start this duo. And I was like, you know what? I was really turned off by the idea of band members, but since it's Tyler over here, I think he gets a pass because we've been friends for so long that it's like I don't anything
Tyler,
going on.
I know you weren't expecting this. I'm going to do it anyway.
Okay.
So Tyler was something we really felt we needed to do, but there was a whole bunch of things that no one would have expected in doing this. When Tyler got here, he'd never touched a music instrument before. He's 25, 26 years old. Usually when someone has any kind of musical interest that's developed as a child or they start in their teens, they pick a guitar up and go at it. Tyler was up and he played a show 3 days after he got here, having never played an instrument. My point is he was so gifted and nobody knew it after all those years. I just want to say he not only brought that, he brought background vocals, which we would have had to have another person for. and the energy that he offers, along with Matt in the show, you couldn't buy it. You'd swear they're brothers or they had this inner thing going on. It's a very cool thing to see.
But
yeah, and it's
that's
like,
a different insight. Is Tyler? Just a question. Does Tyler want? What do you mind talking about? You're obviously going through a bit of a rough patch in your life. But do you mind talking about it?
Yeah. I'm having a hard time hearing you. I'm sorry.
Your rough time in life.
yeah, tell them a little bit about what you went through and what led you here.
Well, like they said, I was staying in Mississippi. Life's just been really a roller coaster of ups and downs. I'm originally from Upstate New York, where Maddie is, and I was having a hard time having ups and downs out there. So I moved to Mississippi, and I was staying with some family out there, and things didn't work out, and I was just at an all-time low, really, just in a crappy place, and I just really needed a miracle. And then one happened, and they called me like a couple of days later. So it was just
we never know how to tell this. I was laying in bed with my wife at midnight, 12:30 in the morning, and I literally turned over to her. I didn't see Tyler's post. Matt did. We were just laying there, and I told my wife, I said, I think we need to get Tyler Connor to come here. Just like that. Nothing else planned. Knew nothing about his situation. And she said, go get him. She went to sleep. I went out and chased him on Facebook, on the internet, for about 3 hours. Unbeknownst to me, he had just flown that right then. He was flying from Mississippi to New York State, was going home to a situation where he just wasn't welcome. There were things that happened, the people that he thought he could stay with, he couldn't stay with situationally. There's some people that really love him out there. There's some other people that just have given him a hard time. Saying all that to say, when I finally got a hold of him and got him on the phone, he had nowhere to stay, nowhere to go, and was trying to figure out. But that wasn't called, oh, gee, we feel bad for you, we're going to bring you here. We already knew before that we wanted him to come, which is in its own way resolved a lot of things for us. As he knew when he got here, you know what, Tyler, we want you to try this. I want you to pick up the bass. I want you to try to learn this music. He's singing the next day, picked up the song. 3 days later, I don't know anybody in my whole life that's ever done that, where he just showed up and was able to play bass to the show. Granted, it was a challenge, and we had a tough time. But since then, he's done some pretty amazing shows. And we know he's gifted, and we know he has that talent in his life, which nobody knew before he got here. So it's a pretty cool thing. It's a God thing.
Yeah,
it really is.
Feel like that.
Yep.
That's really cool, man. And like his energy is just off the. I don't think I developed that kind of charisma. I would say that early on. It took me a couple shipwrecks to finally get to the point where I am now, to where it's just like energy. But he just stepped right out and just was like a whole different level. And he keeps me on my toes too with the energy, because I'm like, I don't want to be that old guy on stage. So I'm like, all right, let's up the voltage here. So it's a good, like, keeping everybody in check mechanism as well.
That's great. That's brilliant. That's great news. And we'll take a small break. I'm going to shout out to some of our contributors. On the show, basically, we have Eileen Smith from eileensmith.com. If you are interested in live streaming or blogging or podcasting, you can check out our YouTube channel. She goes to a lot of live streaming platforms, and she is great for educational purposes. If you're interested in that, so it's Eileen Smith. It's ILENA. Smith.com, or go to her YouTube channel. We have Brent Mann from BrentMannMusic.com, country gospel singer residing in Miami, Florida. Was John Drummond, who from Ideas Go Live website design. He did my website from Edmundusters, which I'm grateful for. So Ideas Go Live, also edmundusters.com or .co.uk. We have many other supporters. As I say, we've got Aoife Leatham from Kingdom Beads and Frame Your Day, and Zakia Ringgold. I'm forgetting who Guy R. Cook from the Guy R. Cook part. I've not got it in front of me, so I'm not reading. I'm a bit rusty on remembering who my supporters are. So there's Guy R. Cook, and we have many others. Shannon Griffin for For Humanities, who did the graphic for my podcast, Ramsay Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders. And we have many, many others, and I will remember you. Apologies if I've forgotten off the cuff because I haven't got them in front of me. So I want to thank you for all these people who do support our podcast, and we thank you for we love supporting you, going out, and as I say, supporting many, many artists and interviewing people with inspirational backgrounds and wherever they've come from in their life. So we're going to talk about the next song in Matt's genre of music. So we're going to talk about that. Obviously, this is a new change in music, and we're going to have a bit of insight to that and go from there. So, Matt, so tell us about that other song. The other song we're going to talk about, which was
"Devil Won't Change His Ways," I suppose.
Yes, tell us a bit about the insight to how that came about, how you wrote, why you wrote it, and obviously you're performing it now.
Okay. Well, "A Devil Won't Change His Ways" is exactly what it sounds like. It's about that person in our lives that just won't change their ways. Those negative influences, those people that we give one too many chances to, and it comes around to bite us in the butt sometimes. I had a friend who, like I said, a lot of the themes on this album, this Transcend album that I've got going on right now, were indirectly influenced by movies, TV, and film. So I started watching a lot of like Breaking Bad. That became like my obsession. When the first days when I moved here, we were kind of moving in, and I just became obsessed with Breaking Bad. I think I went on a 3-day binge, and then when I finally daylight, hit me in the face, I was like, what is happening right now? Because I was so I got really into Breaking Bad, and that show was about the villain. And so upon writing "A Devil Won't Change His Ways" and knowing that there were a lot of shows about villains, I started thinking about the villains in my own life. And we already touched on some of it, like, with the abusive stuff in my background with my father. And I also had a former band member in one of my old projects that him and a girlfriend of mine, for a lack of a better term, cheated. You know what I mean? I went to bat for this person, and it just turned out that like they conspired behind my back and got together. So with all that being said, I started thinking about all the devils in our lives that we contend with on a day-to-day. And that's that theme, man, of just, about that one bad villain in our lives.
Well, do you want to introduce your song?
Hey, man. Well, we want you to watch out for all those devils in your life. This next song is called "A Devil Won't Change His Ways." And it's true.
Just another masquerade, because the world's a stage. Just another sleight of hand to keep the pawns in play. Just another sneak attack to fix the final score. Just another subtle spark meant to start the firestorm. There's nothing more I need to say. A devil won't change his ways. Saw you when he lie with a straight face. But a devil won't change his ways. Once the dice are rolled, it's a rigged game. A devil always wins cause the rules change. And even if it all goes up in flames, a devil won't change his ways. 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 The devil won't change his. Just another twisted bribe to cover up the crime. Just another back that's turned and full of rusty knives. Just another promise made when no one sees the fingers crossed. Just another friendly bet till the devil comes to collect the cost. There's nothing more I need to say. A devil won't change his ways. Saw you when he lie with a straight face. But a devil won't change his ways. Once the dice are rolled, it's a rigged game. A devil always wins cause the rules change. And even if it all goes up in flames, a devil won't change his ways. 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 devil won't change his. Changes.
Welcome back. Thank you for listening. That was The Devil Won't Change His Ways by Matthew Sasano. So let's go into what is your plan now. Now, you obviously got Tyler. You're both working together.
Mm-hmm.
You've just done a headline, well, as a supporting act for the rapper. I've forgotten his name already. But you've just done all these things. So what's your focus going forward? Where do you want to go? Your music is going somewhere. So where do you really want to take it?
We've just been really performing a lot here regionally and locally, as well as we want to get to Scotland, man. That's our next venture. We've got the best show that we've had for such a long time. There's some special effects. We've just gotten more refined as artists. So we're really anxious to see where this will take us. For the touring schedule, man, I'm going to have you speak to Steve, because he's the guy he's the guy that kind of schedules a lot of the events, so he'll tell you a little bit about what's coming up. And
probably the easiest way to put that is over the next 6 to 8 weeks, we're in the surrounding states: West Virginia, the other direction, North Carolina, Alabama, and back to Nashville, and the other side, Memphis. Memphis is a long haul for us, but it's a unique community musically, and we really believe if we could get Matt in front of the right people, it may do him some good. And then as we approach, usually December and January can be a little quieter for the music scene and the live music in particular. But we are trying to put together a European tour of sorts, in that we would be in Scotland, Ireland, Great Britain. We have some connections there. We spoke to some bands in Great Britain.
Well, Scotland is Great Britain. It's the same place.
Well, what do we know? All right, we're looking at it. They said England. Would that be better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. England, Ireland. Yeah. Anyway, you can pick on me all you want. When I get over there, I'm going to call us ahead of you.
Oh, man.
It's all good. He's going to be busy. That's for sure. Him and Tyler are going to be really busy.
Yeah, man. It's been great. So we're looking forward to it, man.
So you obviously wanted to, as yourself, let's go into, where did you get the name Sassy Pants? And
Okay, so Sassy Pants came out of a lot of the promoters that were looking at my music page. Sometimes they'll inspect and they'll be like, dude, did you post that flyer about that upcoming show for me? They were getting my personal page and my band page confused. And so they weren't seeing like flyers that I was putting up and stuff like that. So I finally came to the realization, you know what? I'm going to have to change my personal page name completely. And so I posted a status on my personal page saying, what do you guys think my name should be other than my last name on my personal page? And somebody had suggested Sassy Pants. And being a guy that, as you know, was always that prankster, was always the guy that never turned down a dare, I put the Sassy Pants thing, and now I can't leave a local club without somebody going, hey, Sassy Pants, or, any venue that we're at. So it's kind of stuck. I was going to change it after 90 days because that's when Facebook allows you to do it. But I think it's kind of stuck now, and Sassy Pants is my name, and hopefully, as you brought up, maybe a lingerie line in the future. I don't know.
For all these ladies who are listening to or at one of Matthew's concerts, he will take all sassy knickers if you want. If you want to throw them at him, he'll take all types, even Bridget Jones. So I'll leave that one there. So, but then again, you could do a nice. Hopefully, you'll see some nice merchandise from Matt soon, designed whether it is a pair of Y fronts on the front of a T-shirt saying "Do you like my sassy pants?" and with Matt Sasano music. So there's lots of options out there you will get from Matt. But as I say, if you see him, just shout "sassy pants" and he'll answer. That's the main thing. But let's tell people, where can people connect with you?
All right, man. So I've got Facebook at Matt Sasano Music, Twitter. Twitter is a little bit like I don't have as much interaction going on in there, but I'd love to start. So hopefully that'll start in Scotland. I've got a Twitter page that you can find me at, and also Instagram at Matt Sasano Music.
So is it Matt with a double T or just one T?
Double T. Matt Sasano Music.
Okay, there we go. All these connections will be in the show notes of the podcast for those who are listening on Podbean, and this will be out there, the podcast. So let's wrap things up a bit. Do you want to say anything, closing, or talk about anything else?
Hey, man. Well, I'm just happy to be on the podcast. It was great to kind of be in Scotland or whatever. Hopefully you guys, hear this and we'll get the invite over because we'd love to come and play. If you guys are interested in what we have going on, you can stream us on Spotify, as well as if you want to buy the record, we're always looking for supporters that way. So head on over to the store section of ravenfaithrecords.com, and you can pick that album up, man. And any bit of your support will help. It helps us get out there and do our thing in a big way. So we appreciate it, Scott.
I'll have the link of that website in the show notes as well, which is great. Well, I was going to say thank you to the Simpsons, the Sassy Pants crew, the spin-off show.
All right, man.
There we go. So the Waltons, it's the Sassy Pants. It's going back a bit. But anyway, I want to thank Matt for, on a serious note, for what he's talked about. I want to thank you for the things you discussed. It can't have been easy going through what he's gone through, and just to know that his positive outlook is great going forward. And we wish him all the best. And as I say, we're here to support. And as I say, if you are an artist, you want to do a collaboration with them or any way, get in contact with myself or Ramsay Unleashed, Going Beyond Borders, or Matt Sasano or Sassy Pants on Facebook. You'll find him somewhere. But as I say, you'll get him. But if you want, he's keen to do music. He's keen to inspire people and keen to grow. So as I say, if you like his music and you like what he does, as I say, feel free and contact. Thank you to Matt, Tyler, is Brian, and his mum. And as I say, thank you for the contribution to the podcast. Until next time, everybody, we will catch you all later. Bye-bye now.
Thanks, man.